Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I'm looking at Bombast #1. It's 1993, comics are booming, and the card company Topps wants to get in on the game. And what better way to do that than to mine the archives of Jack Kirby? This line of comics came from unused ideas and concepts from Kirby. So, got this big giant Jack Kirby collector here. This is just the drawing that he had of this character. It's believed that most of these were probably developed in the late to mid 70s. The idea was that they would be used for some of his Marvel work, or even some of it would have been part of his Pacific Comics stuff in the early 80s. Either way, these are unrealized ideas from Kirby, at least character designs and maybe basic story elements to kind of just kick the whole thing off. Because other than this, Kirby doesn't really have much involvement in the project. This picture is actually colored by Kirby, and why they didn't use Kirby colors to put on the cover, I don't know, because I think pretty much all of the covers for these Kirby-verse Topps comics had colored images to work from, but they went with, just using flat comic colors. I mean, it matches the inside, but who cares? It's the cover. I mean, you don't see a lot of Kirby's own colored stuff on published comics. You always see it in these like Jack Kirby collectors or art books or of some sort. I mean, look at the way the bomb itself is colored. It's so different than this. Even I like the muted blue a little better than this purple. And I like purple, but that's just so garish compared to this. So, I think they kind of had a missed opportunity by not using the Kirby colors. But here's something else about this line of books. And it's going to be part of why I think this failed. In another Jack Kirby collector, not the one I just showed, there was an interview with Kurt Busiek, who was doing Wave 2 of the Kirbyverse. He was going to do Captain Victory, and I think he was going to do Silver Star, but it got cut short because sales were low. Those were coming out in like 94, and the market was already declining at that point. But Busiek kind of said the failure was that these came bagged with a card, which, I mean, it's Topps Comics. They've got to stick a card in the comic somehow. So they all came polybagged. And he felt like that deterred fans from like actually picking it up. And if they did buy it, maybe they didn't open it and read it. And so they didn't get the second issues for the ones that had a second issue. But I would say one of the big things is this right here, this map of books you have to read. And it even says in this little description right here that once upon a time, when a comic book debuted, you simply had to buy the first issue, and then the second, and then the third, etc. Nowadays, it ain't that easy. And it goes on to explain how you have to buy all these connecting issues. To make matters worse, this 0 issue that starts the whole thing, you can't get this unless you buy these first 4 and get this coupon and mail it in to get the first part. Then we start with 3 one-shots, and then it goes into a miniseries here. And then you've got this 4th miniseries down here, which doesn't even really seem tied to it, but is part of it. And then to make matters worse, it's like I said, other than the cover, Kirby isn't involved in this or these. He did do about 8 pages of this because I think it was a project he started but didn't go anywhere, so he only did about 8 pages. And then these aren't even Kirby covers. They do try to get Kirby contemporaries, though, to work on it. I mean, you got Roy Thomas as the plot, Gary Friedrich working on the script. And then your artists are Dick Ayers and John Severin. Those are 2 veterans of the Silver Age. So that's the aesthetic they're going for with this. This was definitely aimed at older collectors of the 90s, guys that were already in their like 30s, maybe even their 40s, that grew up with the Marvel Silver Age. Because this did not match what was happening in 93. 93 was the Image era. Valiant Comics was big with strong storytelling and, while not flashy, but crisp art. But we all know what Image was, right? So anyway, I think that's part of what killed this concept, because honestly, when you read this, it's a little dialogue heavy, but there are nuggets of like a kind of a neat story happening here. So it starts in Chicago, and there's an earthquake. We do get some, terrible, stereotypical African-American junkie, as they describe him. They call him a junkie several times. And he's getting hassled by, I guess these are some drug dealers who are white, at least. They're more like mob guys in a way. And, mob and tough guys and stuff like that, that was kind of a Kirby staple of a lot of his books, but we're not getting it via Kirby here, so. And it's 1993. It doesn't land the same way. So anyway, this earthquake happens, and a big crevice opens up that the junkie guy falls into, and he bounces off the wall, but he gets up and he's okay. And as he's stumbling through this like open cave that's, been discovered by the earthquake, he sees our Bombast character in some sort of stasis chamber. And he just moves a rock out of the way, and all of a sudden it wakes up. And the dialogue is saying that he was supposed to wake up anyway, that it was programmed for this moment 15,000 years ago. Precisely this moment. So the kid doesn't even wake him up. I think the earthquake is what causes him to wake up. It's probably in that Secret City Zero, which I don't have. So, that might describe what's causing them to wake up here. The Bombast character jumps out, and he's speaking a different language with some symbols and stuff. And they make a funny little editor note like Stanley used to do. Translation, it's happened. What, you expected a 15,000-year-old man to speak English? Just flabbergasted Jim. That's Jim Salicrup, the editor on the line. But then we go into our typical bracketed, foreign language being translated so we can understand it, right? And him and the boy are having a lack of communication, and that's okay. There's some interesting dialogue between the two of them trying to communicate with each other and failing. But the Bombast guy grabs him, and he's got some enhanced powers, and he talks about how he was genetically engineered to be able to, strength, speed, agility, that kind of thing. I guess kind of Captain America-ish powers, if you want to think of it that way. So he comes out of the crevice. Nobody's around in the park. Have they evacuated the park? Why wouldn't there be people surrounding it? Why wouldn't there be, EMT people coming out for it? The drug dealers are still there, so they start harassing the kid again, and they start wailing on him. And he has this kind of inner turmoil, so to speak, of should he help? Because he doesn't really know what's going on. He doesn't know if the guy being beat on is a bad guy. He doesn't know if he's a good guy, if these are bad guys. He's not quite sure. But when he sees a weapon being pulled and slashed, he decides he has to intervene. And this is where you get, I guess, his Bombast abilities. He tears this bench apart and throws them and hits these guys, taking them out. I mean, it looks like it's hitting them in the face, at least there. I don't know where it's hitting that guy there. That's the one. Kind of looks like it's heading towards his face, too. So he takes him out, and then the junkie guy's like, I should probably hang with this guy a little bit. They're harassing him over not paying for his drugs, by the way. I guess I should mention that. And I like this little interesting way they show that he can dodge bullets. As he mentions, he doesn't know it's a gun. He can tell it's a weapon, but he just kind of analyzes how it's being used. He sees okay, they point the barrel at what they want to hit, focus on the finger. I can see where the bullet's going to go and dodge it. Pretty neat. And then he just throws this dude. And he throws him. He has no idea where he's throwing him. I don't think. Actually, now that I look back on it, he was looking over towards the bridge. I guess he did see the water over there. But he throws him and he lands in the lake. And then it just goes on of them making their way through the city. He doesn't like the cars. He throws this rock into the tailpipe. The driver gets out, is mad about it. But that leads us up to our Image Comics tie-in, which, that was kind of a smart play. Image was the rock star of the industry. So, get somebody that has a love for Kirby. A lot of those guys dedicated their first books to Kirby. Get those guys involved in this. So Erik Larsen lent the Savage Dragon into this. He didn't contribute any. I don't think he inked the cover. He may have inked this cover. I don't know. It doesn't say. McFarlane inked the cover of Satan 6, so I don't know if Larsen got to do anything for this, or if he just said, yeah, use the Savage Dragon. He gave him basic idea of who Dragon is. He's a cop in Chicago. So Savage Dragon walks up, and this is an opportunity they could have used a splash page. They did go with the 4-panel grid like, Kirby would have used, but not executed the best, I don't feel like. Dragon looks kind of small. You got a 9-panel grid here trying to choreograph some action, and it's okay. It's not Batroc the Leaper versus Captain America by any stretch. And they fight for a couple pages, and that's pretty much all the Savage Dragon you get. Until Bombast decides he really can't keep up with the dragon. It's not the dragon's totally beating him, but he's putting up enough of a fight that Bombast decides, I can't hang right now. I need to go get my bearings and understand more about where I am and why I'm here and yada, yada, yada. Back to this coupon. I just noticed this is coupon number 3, even though it shows at the top right there. So I don't know. What an idea. It's not the worst promotional idea in comics. That still is held by Defiant Comics card set, number 0 issue, but starting your universe off with this 0 issue that you have to mail away for, it took advantage of fans, and it was awful. Awful, awful, awful. Part of what led to the demise of comics in the 90s. So our character starts roaming around by himself, and some memories start coming back about the civilization he's from, and he was locked away, but he still can't quite remember why. Kind of a funny scene here where he figures out, if I cross the street by waiting for the man with glasses and the dog to cross, then that's when I go. But then he's just standing out in the street. And the interactions continue with some kid realizes he's a superhero. So we got Savage Dragon in here, so we know that the people are getting used to seeing superheroes around. So he asks him for an autograph, even though he doesn't know who he is. The police roll up. There's the guy Dragon called in about, why don't you come in? And he recognizes that they're probably with some authority, so he just goes willingly. He gets in the car with them. Not the best police car drawn right there that I'm looking at. It's like, are they trying to draw like an older car? It doesn't really look like a 90s police car to me. There it doesn't anyway. There it looks closer. Now this guy shows up. Death Flash. Missed opportunity for a splash page here. And he looks pretty Kirby-ish. He looks pretty cool. Pretty Kirby looking. But that's a missed opportunity, right? That should have been like a full splash page of that dude jumping in. It should have been a full splash page of the dragon. Maybe because they only have this one issue to tell this Bombast origin story of sorts. They tried to just cram in more panels. I don't know. But the Bombast guy gets out, and at first this dude's trying to kind of sway him and trick him. I like this energy glowing off of him too. Death Flash. And be like, oh, brother, you were here. They're speaking the same language. And at first he's like, oh, maybe I will go with you. But he tips his hand too early and says, we're here to remake this new world in our own image. And then he gets a flashback of an elder telling him how he's one of the 9th men, and he needs to protect the 10th men from this threat that ended them, which I guess is part of what Death Flash is from. So there's your little nugget of Kirby world building. This ideas of civilizations lost and new ones emerging, and then an intersection between the two of some sort. That's very Kirby-esque mythology that I think there's a pretty good nugget there that could have been developed into something. I don't know that they assembled the best team to do it in 1993, at least with this one issue that I'm reading here. So then the two continue, they start to fight. They fight for a couple pages. Kind of a silly ending here, which is very Silver Agey too. He finds some wet cement and throws it to the feet of Death Flash, which slows him down enough, even though it wasn't drying and hardening right here. As soon as he throws it on his feet, it starts to harden and slows Death Flash down. And then more police show up. And I like this face here of Death Flash too. I like the way his eyes are colored to be like looking, kind of behind him. And he decides like, I could take them out, but I don't want to do that right now, so I'm just going to take off. He takes off on his roller skates, or roller blades, really. He throws a cop car to slow them down so they can't give chase. And look who's back. Our junkie guy is back. And he trips one of the cops that was with him. She decides to arrest him for that. But the trials of our young black junkie must await another time. For at that same moment, a few blocks away, that's bad. That's kind of terrible. Stereotype stuff. He decides to retreat back to where he came out of that crevice and back to the cave to find some clues. And there he meets Gilda, I think that's her name, or Glida. He meets Glida, and they have a miscommunication, so they kind of tussle for a few panels here, when all of a sudden they're stopped, and it's Captain Glory, and he's interrupting them and, telling them to, like, chill out. And that'll set up our Secret City saga here. So, you get Walt Simonson to do this. Get Walt Simonson to write and draw this whole thing. It probably would have turned out pretty good. But because you kind of went with this, like, old school flair with true old school guys, that I don't know that they really cared that much about it. They were just taking the job that they could take at the time. And they probably got paid pretty well for this. It just didn't land. It didn't land. You got some nice bios here, bullpen bios. Everybody want to do a bullpen. So it's like they're trying to copy Marvel. Jurassic Park. I need to get a copy of Jurassic Park to do for the channel. Anyway, that's it for Bombast number 1. I do have a video on Satan 6 number 1. I'm trying to put a run of these together. I have a couple more. In the end, I would like to do them all for the channel at some point. So at least they're kind of cataloged for people interested in them, want to see them. They'll be there. That's all I got for now. Until next time, read your comics.